So this guy
The iris in my eye, which is the
did this.
actually really loose. It wobbles around as though it's jelly.
So he's all
So I was
concerned that
making
it's
small
that it's
adjustments with my eye, twitching it around, looking at different
that
stuff.
that
And
his
then
eye's
it's my
not
eyes
normal. So I'm just gonna
Not normal in what sense?
that it's wobbling.
Okay.
Okay, see right there, and you can. I'll pass this around so you can see it. It's much more. But see, every time he moves his eyes, you're seeing this.
Got it.
So I believe that's your belly, that's your stomach, that's your heart, and all of this because we're fluid.
Right.
You know, we look at water by approximation. In babies, it's 80 to 85% water. We're like 60 to 65%, depending on our hydration levels and all this sort of function. That's the biggest thing that starts declining as we age and when we become special needs. If you look at the fluid by volume on Leah, let's say, versus Rachel, do you know what I mean? Because she's so cut muscular, that water level drops. But red blood cells are liquids, you know, all of that. There are other forms of liquids in our system. It's not just with that. So, like I said, you can look at that. So when you're looking, so if I move, see if I counter, and I counter, this fluid will stay stable, right? Now, if you look at your daughter, let's say, just look at her, if I jumped the way she did, this water would even come out of the goblet. So for me to keep the water in the goblet, I need much higher skills. Now, when she goes to do it, that water is just going everywhere, and she's losing those functions. So if you're looking at, I can't, so if I try to just balance here and here, again, do you see the level of skill that I need to keep this fluid from sloshing?
Right.
But if you're like this, do you know what I mean? Look at, now I'm trying to control this sloshing, that sloshing, plus what my legs are doing and all of these kind of things. If you visualize it as liquid. So she needs such a sophisticated level of movement to control all of these, plus what her eyeballs probably doing, because again, now she's already doing much better, but just having this,
Right.
you know. So instead of saying, don't do this with your hands, this is where I don't care what she's doing here, right? So if she's here, I go after the pelvis, and already, that gyroscope, I go after that pelvis, and then, you know what I mean? And then it's like, oh, I can counter, I can counter, I can counter. Now in this case, she had more the low tone, and the head control, you know, again, created such momentum. And everyone's thinking, if I could just strengthen her neck. And I was like, you gotta go after that pelvis. Because the more that pelvis starts to act, and that skiing, the better your pelvis function. If you go out there with a stick up your butt, you know what I mean? Like you and a tree are biffing it.
Right.
So, but if you're there and you're just, woo, and that's what it is. I ski, I ski, I ski. I've got this all under control. But part of that is also developing a movement vocabulary. An Olympic medalist can't go out and ski after 3 months and ski as if they're going to win gold. I mean, but the more they play on different surfaces, their feet get used to ice and bouncing and rocks. But if you've never experienced just those changes in textures and feet alone, does that skier have sensory integration problems? No. They just don't have that kind of vocabulary that they're like, oh, rock, you know what I mean? Because they haven't played with that. Once their brain goes through it and they go, well, I was going faster than the rock didn't matter anymore. You know what I mean? Like, so they could go over that little bit of dirt or gravel and just continue on the skiing. So to look at functional movement versus the diagnostic, the the spastic, you know, I get it that those things are a factor, but I believe that those kind of diagnoses are for you and your doctor to have a conversation with. But anything that the brain will improve on is when they can function better, more efficiently. You can really see it with. So when she's sitting there and she's trying and get up, but after she gets up the first time it's successful, she doesn't go, wow, I'm a pro. But that's when she'll start doing it this way, morning, and this way, and that way. But if you're looking at a typical 2-year-old, you know what I mean? And they're like this, and they're like this, and they're like this, and that's when mommy and daddy go, no, you need to sit down. And it's like, no, you want those movements to happen. I get it. Cognitive starts to, okay, I'm in church now, I can't do those things, but when I leave, I can go to the playground. And then we become adults and we really lose that play because we go too far to the other side. It's about balance. So that's where I think I look at it a lot differently. But I can go and do a complete, if I'm good, a complete cartwheel and still hold this glass of water. But that would take, quote, what we call practice as adults. Kids don't practice. They play. They learn by, oh, this worked out. But if I'm here and this iPad's here, the don't fall, protect the central nervous system is going to supersede, well, if I come down and put my elbow here and then come over here, then I can get it, but now I have this, and if I'm lifting, I can't sit up. So she's learned, I believe, well, if I throw it over here, and then I can get up, and then I can go, you know what I mean? She just puts a lot more momentum into making stuff happen. So I'm not saying don't do that here. I'm trying to show her that it's not necessary. So that's why when she's allowed to play with the toy long enough, like that farm, she's starting to like, oh, and scan, and oh, I can start and moving the pages and all of those kind of things with my right hand as well as my left. She still might be left-hand dominant to write, but she still should be. But that takes this and this. That's not happening. And it might just be right now because I'm doing it, but hopefully her brain will start assimilating, oh, I can get more out of it because the human brain wants efficiency.
Right.
Or ease. That's why we're all going to McDonald's. It's much easier to do through the drive-through than to cook. I'm not saying that's right, but that's what the brain goes after, is ease. If I said come to my office every day through Flagstaff, you'd be like, Michelle, no, I'm not doing it. You could still get here, but it'll take you 4 hours. Is it efficient? No. Is it possible? Yes. So I just go after function. Instead of what I say is the windshield wiper, is this what she's doing from this point, right? So that's what I was saying yesterday with the head. The head goes like this and this when you're special needs, from here usually. And so when she's jumping, because she doesn't know how to do it, her head really goes into this position, and that's her jump.
Right.
But the head can rotate from here. So again, I have equal parts of radius. We're here, no radius here, it's all through here. These are all valid movements, or I can have here where my radius point is here, so the nose doesn't move, but then the back of the head has to move.
Right.
So it's the same thing. What you're looking at is this. So it's like a windshield wiper, right? But what we're looking to do more is change the radius point from here versus here.
So that's what we should always be visualizing, is the wine glass. And
Well,
that
again, I'm a freak. I can see you right now totally in a skeletal system. I could see you, like if the glass floor was glass and what your skeletal system looks from. I can look at the human body or whoever I'm working on or seeing this in my mind's eye, just as a skeletal system with muscles or where they are. I can, in my mind's eye, I can do this without making the object move. So I realize most people don't think the way I do.
Right.
So I have to find ways of showing you or allowing you to play without thinking how to, again, fix, but just understanding movement. So again, if her center of gravity is more here versus here, if it's here, guess what? I can do all sorts of things.
Okay.
Even if I go off a little bit. But see, it maintains its horizon. Again, if I have rotation and this does. Now, if I don't, and I start doing this, look at what I've got to do to get this glass around me. Though that's what our kids are doing.
Okay. That makes sense.
Now, again, even though Rachel's, quote, typical, she's not going to be able to do something like this
Sure.
because she has to have a subsense of spatial relationship that she just hasn't developed to that level yet. She's still working more on her gross. That's why they can't write it too. You know what I mean?
Right, totally.
They're going after how their mass moves in space. But eventually, yes, those are ideal, and where you can start doing these kind of things.
I know I'm thinking, can I do that?
But again, I'm always moving, so I have a movement vocabulary too, and also I trust this process just beyond belief. So, and what's going to happen worse? I spill water on myself, so what? You know what I mean? But again, if I had to do this, which is more Leah, see if it'll balance this. I need to get these where they strap on to me. This, and see, okay, I'll do it this way. If I had to do something like this, and do this, do you know what I mean? Like, I can't even breathe, and it's failing.
Right.
So, this is where I really admire our kids, because if she's that smart and she's still trying to do that, that's a brilliance of here. I just believe, I don't care if it's typical, non-typical, everybody just has a right to a better life. And you'll see it too, like, you know, and even she gets it. Oh, I'm so glad I'm not in XYZ's versus, but people are so used to their dichotomy, like, at least my CP is not as bad as your CP, which is fine, but you're just more used to your child responds to you, and you know what I mean? That's life. But I really believe that the fact that I touch, whether it's, you know, or whatever, but I've learned to touch them as if they're my kids. So I don't care if they're 85 years old or if they're 2 days old.
Sure.
I show them the same respect. So when you come on my table, you're getting the lesson. Not that I don't care what you have, but my brain has to be open to, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you that. Oh yeah, I forgot to, oh well, I had spinal meningitis when I was a kid. I blew out my eardrums, I lip read till I was 9, and I had to relearn how to crawl. Do you think that has anything to do with my fibromyalgia? My worst case scenario is I had a man, 88, and she's heard this story 50,000 times, fell and broke his hip. Well, they didn't tell me till halfway through the lesson because I could feel his system quivering. I said, okay, where's the trauma? Like his body was going, help me! Even though they're like, I can't get off the walker. They shortened his leg 2.5 inches. His whole life he had one leg longer than the other. And the surgeon thought that would be a good idea since he broke the hip anyway to shorten the leg at 88 years old.
Did they tell them they were doing this?
Yeah. And the wife was like, oh, those orthotics were horrible. Ma'am, that's all he knew. His visual field is 2.5 inches shorter that you've just cut out. His gait, you've just cut 5 inches off of his gait because he had 2.5 inches extra with your orthotic and the long leg. So when he goes to reach for something like this, you've taken away his counterbalance. You've at 88 years old, what you did to his neurosystem, like. And I'm like, I'm the only one that can help you. And I very rarely say that. Even the way he walks, what I'm trying to show you, and the heart coming over the system, just think of, and this is why I got these blocks originally. So imagine that the square is the heart, and these two are your lungs. So when you go to roll, let's say, the lung will shift, you know what I mean, and do this. Now, what if you have pneumonia in this lung? Guess what? You're starting to roll, and because the infection is a slower mucus than typical mucus, you're going to have, that's why when you're sick, to get out of bed is so much work. It starts the effect of how you relate to gravity. So when this becomes a mass, and the mass supersedes the mite, you're goner. You're going, I can't get up out of bed. So even in his position, you take off 2.5 inches. Do you know what I mean? So him going to walk, just the way his heart is shifting over the foot and the lungs, is totally different. The human brain at 88 years old cannot handle all that information. People see only this. That's why I don't like sight, sound, touch. You know, who cares? You know, what's the function? What's going on with the function? So now if I'm here, and now I'm trying to bring my lungs out. They're not working together. So it cancels out the movement. So if I immediately go into an inflection, I can't get off the table because I haven't learned to. And that's why I was saying that's what I was practicing this. So she can feel without it feeling like it's falling. I also believe that as Newton's law, we have 14.7 pounds of pressure all around our body per square inch. So when I'm doing this, I feel an equal force unless I'm in what they call G-force kind of things. So when you cut yourself, the reason the pain so badly, and you've had C-sections, right?
Yeah. I have
So-
those 3.
So you know what that's like. So when you break that epidermis function of gravity, it's now like sleeping on a bed of nails. If you sleep on a complete bed of nails, it distributes the body mass. And so you don't, which I'm not about to try this one, but it supposedly doesn't have the same pressure. But if I was slept on one nail, it would puncture me. So if you look at gravity at that same function, and this is where I like to get the kids up, they have to feel that gravitational force in all directions. So it'd be like someone pushing me from behind or whatever. So I did this the other day. If I pushed her, her body's response is immediately to want to come back to me. But in Lee's case, it's fall over. Because she's not, again, playing with those sensations. She's doing more this,
Right.
but she's not, and again, you think of it a little more of a butterfly kind of thing. So when you have a cut, first of all, what's underneath there is not used to feeling gravity at that level because they've had this membrane. So you've got the pain, which is extra, but also people feel like their guts are going to fall out. They literally go like this, and they're not going to, but
Right.
it's that sensation. So when I'm bringing someone over to go like this and actually hold the stomach and let them feel what it's like to, and play with that versus,
Right.
because again, it's just an abnormal sensation. So to say, is this the way her brain's functioning? Yes and no. Her brain's not saying, oh my God, your belly's gonna, but that sensation is just so intense that the system doesn't know what to do.
And she learned how to move by throwing her pelvis forward, like pushing her hips forward. So even coming out of the car seat, we still work on it. All right,
Right.
how to come, and if she's tired and she's trying to get out like this, it's like, well, how do we do it? And she kind of reaches forward.
But no offense, even out of a car seat, especially when it's on an angle, for a typical kid, if you look at Ray, it's hard to come when you've been sitting in this 33-degree
Sure,
angle
sure.
because there's no base to counterbalance.
Yeah.
Because your feet are still like this.
Right.
So to come up like that, you're now using a muscular thing versus if her feet were allowed to come down and come up to that,
Yeah.